You want a story? Share. Fine. Let me tell you how a man dies twice. First time was easy. French bullet. Somewhere in Saint-Domingue, long before they called it Haiti. I was a soldier, or maybe a thief, depends on who you ask. But either way, bang, down I go, body in the dirt. Name forgotten before it hit the ground. That was death number one. Second time, that's the trick. That's when I looked up from the grave and saw the Loa. Spirits older than chains, older than crowns. They laughed at me, said I wasn't done yet. They shoved a hat on my head, shoved a cigar in my teeth, and told me, "Go watch the gates. You're the Baron now." So I crawled back, different. My skin, already dead. My laugh, already drunk. But my job, simple. Stand at the crossroad, crack jokes at funerals, make the living squirm, guard the bones, because the gods were too busy playing dice with empires. That's the secret, Lucifer. You think you're special because you got exiled? Please. The world is a graveyard, Cher. Everyone's chained to something. Prophecy, memory, even me. But you know why I laugh? Because chains don't scare me anymore. I was buried once already. What's one more? So when I tell you monsters always break free but never win, don't think it's theory. I've seen it. I've been it. And I got the grave dirt under my fingernails to prove it.
When the world breaks, it doesn't always begin with gods falling or fires rising. Sometimes it begins with what we cast away. The child we fear, the creature we chain, the place we lock the dead and pretend not to hear them whisper. Every civilization has a boundary, a line between what is sacred and what is monstrous. But what happens when those lines blur, when the things we feared most weren't born evil, but made that way? We descend into the oceans where serpents coil around the world. Into the caves where wolves wait with broken chains. Into the thrones of the dead where silence judges us more than fire ever could. And into the deepest realm of all Xibalba, a place where gods of death don't punish but test.
We love to talk about monsters as if there's something outside us. Fangs, scales, rage. But sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we created, the children we rejected, the powers we tried to lock away.
Fenrir, raised by the gods until they got scared of him. Jormungandr, thrown into the ocean before he even got a chance.
Then we meet Hades, not a villain, not a tyrant, just the brother left behind to carry the weight no one else wanted.
Hades drew the short straw and got stuck with the dead forever. And then there's Xibalba, where the dead don't even get peace unless they prove they deserve it.
The Mayan underworld, the most brutal afterlife you've never heard of. It doesn't punish, it tests. It puts your story to the fire and sees what survives.
Chains. Always chains. You see it, don't you? Bind the wolf, drown the serpent, bury the brother. Same trick, every story. And you know what happens? Chains break, and when they do, prophecy burns.
Chains always break, But don't fool yourself. The breaking don't rewrite the ending. It just proves the prophecy was right. Monsters get loose, they roar, they bite. Then they die.
Or maybe the chains made them monsters in the first place.
And if that's true, then the real horror isn't what lives in the underworld. It's what drove them there in the first place.
In the deep breath of northern myth, before time cracked beneath the weight of destiny, two names haunted every whispered prophecy. Jörmungandr and Fenrir. Not gods, not mortals. Monsters.
Of course they call them beasts. That's what history does to the ones it fears. Jörmungandr and Fenrir are not monsters. They are consequences. They are the children of a world that cannot bear its own prophecy.
Born not from chaos itself, but from the cunning of it. Their father? Loki, the trickster, the shapeshifter. The spark that both illuminates and burns.
The gods didn't fight fate, they panicked. They saw a vision they didn't like and tried to duct tape destiny shut. And let me tell you something. You treat someone like a threat long enough, they're gonna become one.
Jörmungandr, the serpent, was cast into the sea the moment he was born. The gods could feel it. His presence coiled like fate. So Odin threw him into the deepest waters.
I remember when they threw him into the ocean, said the sky had no room for a serpent. I asked where monsters go when the heavens run out of space. No one answered.
There he grew, and grew, until he encircled the world, biting his own tail. A beast suspended in restraint, his breath rising as waves, his silence felt as tides.
He didn't beg to be tossed in the ocean like some cosmic piece of trash.
Jörmungandr lives in silence for eons, coiled, restrained, meditative, until the gods break the world with their arrogance. And then he rises, not with chaos, with precision.
Fenrir, the wolf, remained on land, but his growth frightened even the bravest gods, so they lied to him. Bound him in chains they claimed were tests of strength. He broke them all.
Chains. Always chains. That wolf is me. You hear? They raise you, then cage you, then call you monster when you bite back. But I won't stay bound. When my chains break, I won't die in prophecy's script. I'll rewrite it.
Rewrite it? No, Shale. Fenrir snapped his leash and still ended up dog food for Vidar's boot. Monsters break free, but prophecy always gets the last laugh.
You think monsters just happen? Nah, monsters are memory gone wrong. Forgotten, buried, twisted till nobody remembers who they were. That's what I fear, being chained in silence so long, the only story left is fangs.
So they forged one final bond, Gleipnir. A ribbon of paradox made of 6 impossible things. And still, Fenrir paused. If I let you bind me, he said, one of you must show trust. Tyr, the god of war, placed his hand in the wolf's mouth. The gods laughed as they tightened the binding. Tyr did not. When the game ended, his hand was gone.
Rotting or not, prophecy says Fenrir dies. That's where I walk away. I don't care what's written. I won't be devoured in someone else's ending.
Walk away? No, Diable. You'll play your part. Same as the wolf. Same as the snake. Prophecy don't bend. It just laughs while you dance.
Man, this one hits different. See, monsters? They don't just show up evil out the box. They get made. Fenrir? That wolf didn't ask to be born with jaws that could break worlds.
I met Fenrir once, when the chains were still lies disguised as games. He looked at me like I was already a ghost, and maybe I was. He said nothing, but his silence, it sounded like mine.
Tyr, let's talk about him. He gave his hand, not just in sacrifice, in shame. He knew what they were doing to Fenrir. He knew the lie. He just didn't stop it. That's what order does. It makes peace with injustice and calls it necessary.
The gods knew the end was coming. They read it in runes, dreamed it in omens, and still, instead of listening, they controlled. Suppressed, imprisoned, but prophecies aren't warnings, they're promises. You don't get to dodge the truth by locking it in a cave.
Jormungandr, sitting in the ocean for centuries, minding his business, just breathing, just waiting, until that day came. The day he let go of his own tail, that snap, that moment right there, that was Ragnarok, kicking off like a match dropped on dry grass. And Fenrir? Oh, Fenrir breaks loose with the fury they practically raised themselves.
Fenrir breaks loose, not to destroy, to remind them.
Centuries of fear, chains, lies, no more of that. He ain't barking, he's roaring. And who's waiting for him at the end of that rage? Odin, All-Father himself, the same one who threw the first lie in Fenrir's face.
You raised this fire. Now feel the heat.
So when Jormungandr uncoils and Thor meets him with thunder, it isn't justice, it's ritual. They both knew. And when Fenrir rips open Odin's chest, that isn't vengeance, that's arithmetic, cause and effect, written in Fang and Fate.
You push folks into corners, call them monsters, and then stand surprised when they break your walls? That's on you, because fate don't care how many locks you put on the door. If you feed fear long enough, it grows teeth. And trust me, once those teeth come out, you better pray you remember why you called them monsters in the first place.
Vidar, silent, prepared, the quiet god with one shoe and a purpose. He kills Fenrir, not with hate, with duty, because Ragnarok isn't just an ending, it's a clearing, a rebalancing.
When the dust settled, Asgard was no more. The halls that once echoed with laughter and lore were silent. The sea swallowed the serpent. The sky wept for the fallen. But even then, life found its breath. A new sun rose. A new world waited. And from the ashes, something ancient and young stepped forward. Not just survival. Renewal. Jormungandr and Fenrir were not aberrations. They were the rupture required to begin again.
They didn't bring Ragnarok. They answered it. With teeth, with coils, with all the fury you tried to bury under marble thrones and thunderbolts and pretty songs about order. You push a creature long enough, chain it, lie to it, twist its name, and then look shocked when it comes back with claws?
And maybe when they come again, we'll be wise enough not to chain them first.
Thor shall strike the serpent, and the world will tremble. His victory comes with his final breath, the cost of all that is to come.
In my dream, the door is gone again. I screamed, but no one heard. Only the smile, only the silence.
Not all doom announces itself with roars and fangs. Some of it creeps in quieter, through cracks, through silence.
You mean like the kind of door that's supposed to stay shut? Like forever shut?
Chains, doors, walls. Always the same lie. Nothing stays shut forever.
Every breach just proves the walls were needed. Fenrir breaks free, Odin dies, gates crack, ghosts spill. But prophecy still smiles. You can kick down doors all night, Cher. You still walk the hallway they built.
So what happens when the god of the dead stops playing by the rules?
We meet Hades, not as a villain, not as a monster, but as something far more dangerous, a god who's done waiting.
If Hades can keep an empire in shadows, why can't I break mine?
If the underworld leaks, memory leaks. You lose the boundary between past and present, living and dead, you lose me. And then what's left to remember?
Or maybe Hades was never chained at all. Maybe he just carried the burden no one else wanted. Exile isn't rebellion. Sometimes it's just being left behind.
In the myths of old, The underworld was not a place of evil. It was a place of order. Deep beneath the earth, hidden from the sun, lay the realm of Hades.
In those days, when Olympus sat high and mighty, dropping fate into mortal ears like they owned every breath, there was one god folks didn't talk about much, but they sure enough feared him: Hades, lord of the underworld, brother to Zeus and Poseidon, the one who kept what nobody else wanted to claim, the world beneath.
Not a prison, not a hell, but a sanctuary for souls after death. It was quiet, structured, eternal.
He didn't go looking for that throne. They handed it to him, said, "Here, you watch over the dead." And Hades took it, not with thunder, not with floods, but with silence, with patience, with the kind of calm that makes you remember the end comes for everybody sooner or later.
He didn't ask for the dead, he just didn't protest. And silence? The gods mistake that for consent. They say he chose the shadows. No, he was told the light was full.
He didn't need worship. He didn't need crowds singing his name. He just waited, because in the end, everything and everyone comes home to him.
But even the most ancient realms can fracture.
That is inevitability, child. That is power without shouting about it. But even for Hades, there was a line he wasn't meant to cross. A line between the keeper of memory and the thief of hope. I have seen that line break more than once. I was there when pharaohs tried to lock up the souls of their enemies, keeping them from the scales, thinking they could punish the dead twice. And I had to remind them, the underworld is not your playground. You do not own it. You guard it. Because once you twist death into a weapon, once you decide you can rule the afterlife like you rule the living, you set a fire that will burn your whole name down.
When the war was over, the brothers cast lots. Zeus claimed the sky, Poseidon, the sea, and Hades. Hades was given the underworld. Not by choice, by fate. At first, he bore it in silence. Duty was a crown he wore well. But even gods, especially gods, can drown in silence. While Zeus played king beneath sunlight and thunder, while Poseidon carved waves with his trident and chased every horizon, Hades stayed below. Unseen, uncheered, unloved.
They say it began with love, not the warm kind, not the kind that lifts. This was the kind that consumes, that hollows, that breaks the rules of gods and men alike.
And every time he climbed back to Olympus, he found it colder. Not in temperature, in welcome. The laughter didn't reach him anymore. The feasts tasted hollow. Even his own brothers, once comrades in rebellion, looked through him like he was a memory.
Persephone, daughter of Demeter, the maiden of spring. She danced in meadows and breathed life into the soil. Flowers bloomed at her touch. The world turned green in her presence, and Hades watched.
So he turned back to shadow, to stone, to solitude. The underworld had no sky, no seasons, but it had souls, and they came endlessly. More and more, like wealth he never asked for. But even a god who rules over death can feel the weight of loneliness.
He saw her light and yearned for it.
even a king buried in echoes, wants something real. He didn't want worship. He didn't want praise.
The gods do not ask, they take.
He wanted what Zeus took for granted, what Poseidon devoured without thought.
One day, as she reached for a narcissus blossom,
He wanted love.
the earth cracked beneath her feet, a chariot surged upward.
Not to be adored, but to adore. And so he looked up.
Black horses, smoke, a hand.
To find someone who might see him, not the god, not the judge,
A scream, and then silence.
not the shadow, just Hades. She was the daughter of spring, Persephone, young, curious, radiant, a maiden who laughed among flowers and danced with the wind. Her closest companion was not a sister nor a friend, but her mother, Demeter, goddess of harvest and growth, bearer of the green world. And then she vanished. When Demeter turned and found only petals where her daughter had stood, the world changed. She searched every land, every sea, every sky. No answer, no sign. The gods, they knew. But none spoke, whether by oath, fear, or cruel indifference. Olympus said nothing, and so Demeter, the mother of fertility, withdrew her gift. Seeds stopped sprouting, rivers slowed, trees bore no fruit, fields turned to dust. Her grief was not a storm, it was a drought, a slow, aching decay of life. All creation paused as a mother mourned a name. No one would speak, and the world waited. The tale of Persephone is not just about the underworld. It is about what happens when the divine stays silent and a mother refuses to forget. Crops withered beneath her sorrow. Famine swept the land. The balance broken. Zeus, caught between brother and sister, forged a compromise. Persephone would spend half the year above and half below. Spring and winter, life and death, a myth to explain the seasons and to hide a darker truth.
There's something tragic and beautiful in that. That a woman taken from her world could transform the very one that caged her.
Let's be clear, this wasn't a marriage. It was an abduction, a breach. Hades did not wait for consent, he seized it. And when Persephone's voice faded from the world above, so did hope. This was not just a myth of love lost. This was a warning about power wielded without permission, about cycles of control disguised as fate. Yet even in her captivity, Persephone changed.
Persephone grew into the darkness. She did not wither. She did not submit. She ruled. And with her reign came something new. Memory.
She was no longer just the maiden. She became queen, queen of the underworld, ruler of shadows. Her voice, once silenced, now commanded the dead.
The dead no longer drifted in forgetfulness. With Persephone there, they remembered. They wept. They sang. The underworld pulsed with emotion.
Hades knew that. That's why he stayed quiet, why he kept his shadows in order. But even the king of the dead had to remember, you don't play with what's already resting, because memory, once stirred wrong, becomes something you can't ever put back to sleep.
The line between living and dead grew thinner, until it broke.
There was a day, and you better believe I wrote it down, when the river Lethe itself stopped flowing. The waters of forgetfulness ran dry, like even the world beyond had had enough of burying the truth. And when that happened, the gates of Elysium started shaking.
Thus began the breach. Not a rebellion, a reckoning.
Because down there in the depths, those souls, they stirred. They didn't want to forget no more. They wanted justice. They wanted closure. They wanted a reckoning. And Persephone? Oh, she heard them. She stepped up to the gates of the dead, looking out on all those restless hearts, and she spoke what the high gods didn't ever want to admit. Not all who rest here are meant to stay silent.
The dead rose not as corpses, but as voices. As stories, they carried with them all the unfinished truths, the betrayals, the injustices, the forgotten names, and they marched.
That shook the halls of heaven, child, because the truth is, memory is dangerous. The gods like to keep folks comfortable, wrapped up in soft illusions, talking about peace and forgiveness, telling them to let go. But sometimes you can't let go. Sometimes the only way to find peace is to speak what was buried, stand up for what was stolen.
I've been called many names: guardian, healer, witness. But lately, I hear another: monster. Not because I changed, but because I stayed. Stayed when heaven shut its gates. Stayed when I asked too often why the innocent bled while the throne stood silent. And now, I understand the chain.
The earth cracked, the heavens dimmed. The gods watching from Olympus trembled.
I weighed the hearts of those who died crying out for justice, men and women who had been crushed under crowns, whose only crime was standing too tall. And their spirits wouldn't rest, not until the scales saw them fair.
Some say it was Persephone who led them. Others say it was Hades who opened the gates, weary of silence. But no matter who began it, the result was the same. The underworld came undone.
But from that chaos came something unexpected: understanding. A mother reconciled with a lost child. A soldier wept at the feet of his enemy. A murderer confessed. A nation remembered the names it had buried.
For one terrifying moment in mythic time, death and life collided. The veil between worlds tore like parchment. The living saw the dead. The dead spoke to the living, and chaos reigned.
The breach, terrifying though it was, became a bridge. And when it closed, as all myths must, something had changed, not in the gods, in us.
Hades went on back to his throne. Persephone took up her crown again. The river Lethe started flowing like it always had, wash away the pain, smooth out the sharp edges. But let me tell you, the dead, they weren't silent no more. They sang, they whispered, they remembered, because once the truth comes out, you can't bottle it up again. You can't hush it with a river, can't drown it in darkness. That memory, it stays.
So this is it. The breach. The crack in the floorboards of creation. One little push, and the whole basement floods. Imagine it. Every scrap God swept under the rug, every monster, every sin, spilling out onto the surface. A tidal wave of all the things he wanted forgotten. That's how you shake the heavens. That's how you prove a point.
A point? No, mon frère. That's just noise. Noise and stink. You open that door, and all you get is the trash God was too polite to burn. You don't make a symphony. You make a garbage fire. And the only ones dancing are the rats.
Rats, sure. But rats with teeth. Rats with stories. Rats that gnaw at the pillars of heaven. There's poetry in that chaos.
Poetry? You ever read a poem made of sewer water? It rhymes like diarrhea, Sherry. You flood the world with waste, the world doesn't bow. It plugs its nose. And while you're busy giggling in the filth, guess what? Heaven sends its janitors. And they don't mop. They burn.
Ah, so, the reaction. Always bigger than the act.
Exactement. You poke the lion, you don't just get the paw. You get the whole beast chewing your bones. What's broken stays broken. And every breach you open digs your own hole deeper. 2 feet, 10 feet, 6 miles. Same address, my friend. Down.
So breaking hell loose is just an expression after all.
Persephone understood that. She brought it with her every time she stepped into the light, because there is no spring without a winter to remember. There is no hope without the stories that built it. And the dead, they might rest, but they will never be silent again.
Hell's already loose, Cher. Always has been. The trick ain't in breaking it. The trick is learning how to dance with it, without getting eaten by your own music.
Apophis rises with jaws wide, but the bark of Ra will pierce the darkness, holding the light against the chaos.
The Greeks imagined death as a silence, a kind of containment, a domain ruled by law, shadow, and memory. But not everywhere. In other parts of the world, the afterlife wasn't a place you were sent. It was a place you had to survive.
Wait, so the Greek dead just show up, wait for judgment, maybe drink some river water and forget everything, but in this next one, they have to fight?
For the Maya, death wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a trial, a journey. Xibalba wasn't a resting place. It was a labyrinth of traps, illusions, and gods who didn't care if you were innocent, only if you were clever enough to make it through.
Labyrinths. They're built to erase. Wrong turn, you forget your way. Wrong shadow, you lose your name. That's what terrifies me.
So it's not about being good, it's about being sharp, brave, or maybe just lucky.
Or determined. The kind of determination that says, you don't own me, even in death.
Okay, that's kinda epic. Creepy, but epic. So what happens if you lose?
Then you stay forever.
And if you win?
Then you rise again.
Some souls only rise because they refuse to stop walking, even when it hurts.
Beneath the world we know below the rivers and mountains, beyond the reach of the sun, there is another realm. The Maya called it Xibalba, the place of fear. It is a labyrinth of darkness and trial, where the dead go not to rest, but to be tested. Here, the soul is not judged by its beliefs or its balance, but by its courage, its wit, its will to endure. But Xibalba is more than an afterlife. It's a court, a trap, a mirror. The story of how two brothers dared to descend into its depths is one of the oldest in the Americas. It is not a tale of gods punishing mortals. It is a tale of mortals outwitting gods.
All right, let's set the scene so you don't miss a beat. You got these two boys, Honahpu and Exbalanque, sons of a murdered father, grandsons of the earth herself. And they ain't your standard heroes with swords flashing and lightning flying around. No, sir. These boys, they were ball players. Yeah, you heard me. Ball players. They played that Mesoamerican ball game so fast, so fierce, so loud that the thump of that rubber ball hitting the court shook all the way down into Xibalba.
That is so cool. Are they really playing soccer? With a real ball?
Hey, finally something entertaining. I thought that apocalypse were all just drama and, you know, tears and blood and stuff. But this is different. So pay attention, kiddo.
And the Lords of Death? They didn't like that noise one bit. So what do? They send out an invitation, dressed up pretty, but it was a trap, plain as day. Come play in our court, they said. Let's see if your skill counts for anything down here. And you know what? Those twins went. They didn't run, they didn't hide, they didn't ask for a pass. They stepped right into that darkness.
Xibalba was not just a place. It was a process, a system designed to break you slowly.
It wasn't about justice. It was about control, about making sure that even in death, power still belonged to them.
They did not go for glory. They descended for vengeance, for justice, for blood. Hunahpu and Ixbalanque, sons of a god who was lured into Xibalba and destroyed. Now, it was their turn.
When the Lords of Death demanded torches that burned without fire, the boys summoned fireflies.
The first trial was the Dark House, a chamber so black it swallowed time. No torches, no fire, just emptiness. But the twins were clever. They tricked the dark with embers hidden in a red feather.
When asked for cigars that would never burn down, they used red jewels and resin to fake the glow. They refused to lose, not just for themselves, but for the father they never knew.
Then came the Razor House. Its walls were alive blades, spinning, singing for blood. A single misstep meant being carved from the inside out. But the twins spoke to the house. They tamed the blades, named them like pets, turned death into obedience. Next, the Cold House. Ice that cracked bone, breath that froze in lungs. But the twins knew stories older than winter. They wrapped themselves in the warmth of memory and woke untouched. The Jaguar House, filled with cats whose eyes gleamed like stars. Predators waiting. But the twins' scattered bones tricked the beasts into fighting each other. They walked through unscarred. Then, the Firehouse, a trap designed to consume. But fire is an old god too. And the twins danced with it. They did not burn. They belonged. Finally, the Bat House, where Camazotz, the death bat, ruled. Its wings cut air, its screech shattered thought. Here, they faltered. One of the twins, Hunahpu, lost his head. But it was not the end. Exbalanque tricked the lords again. He lured them into a game. A ball game. And with that game, he won back his brother's head.
Hunahpu, who died in this same court, his skull turned into a seed, his memory used as a warning. The twins weren't playing to win. They were playing to rewrite the rules.
That day, in the court of gods and monsters, the dead lost, because the twins did not win with power. They won with wit, with patience, with unity. Xibalba was meant to break them. Instead, it became their story. And in their footsteps, every soul who walks through shadow now walks with a little more hope. And in the end, after the games, the betrayals, the blood, the twins took control of the story. They offered themselves in sacrifice, letting the Lords of Death kill them. But death, in Maya myth, is not an ending. It's an alchemy, a chance to transform.
This is about grit. These boys didn't win because they had some prophecy stamped on their forehead. They won because they refused to lose, because they did not believe that fear should rule the dead or the living.
The twins rose again, first as fish, then as men, then as something more. They returned to Xibalba not as challengers but as gods. They performed magic, raised the dead, and one by one they tricked the lords into revealing their own corruption. Then they struck. They burned the lords of Xibalba, not with swords, but with truth.
they rose. Maya astronomers will tell you those twins became the sun and the moon, sitting up in the sky for eternity, watching over the world they saved. That's the reward you get for taking your shot, even when the court is rigged.
And when the dust settled, when the screams stopped echoing through the tunnels, they did what no one else ever had. They remade the underworld.
This was a revolution, not against evil, but against inevitability, against the idea that death must always be ruled by fear. The twins didn't destroy Xibalba. They decolonized it, rewrote it, reclaimed it, and they didn't do it with armies, they did it with wit.
Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk into the dark, knowing the rules are rigged, and still say, let's play.
The great beasts shall emerge, their fury boundless, but the heroes shall rise, wielding fire against shadow, and balance shall be restored.
I'm still scared.
Whew, I still have chills. That's a great story.
So many of the myths we've heard in this episode were never really about monsters. They were about boundaries, who gets to draw them, who gets cast out, and what happens when the things we exile come back.
I used to think monsters were easy to spot. You know, fangs, claws, glowing red eyes. But now, I think the real monsters are made when we ignore, abandon, or lock someone away because they scare us. Fenrir didn't choose rage. Jormungandr didn't choose exile. Hades didn't choose silence. And those Maya twins, they didn't ask to carry their father's ghost on their backs.
We build myths to make sense of the dark, but sometimes those myths reflect the darkest parts of ourselves.
It's weird. The ones we called monsters, they showed the most honesty.
Finally, thank you.
Fenrir didn't lie. Hades didn't sugarcoat death. And the twins, they walked straight into hell and didn't blink. Meanwhile, the gods, they hid, they panicked, they lied.
That's the pattern, isn't it? Those with power trying to preserve their version of peace by erasing everything that challenges it. But you can only bury something for so long before it finds a way to rise.
So maybe the real question isn't, how do we fight the monsters? Maybe it's, what monsters have we created by refusing to understand what we fear?
And what might we learn if we listen to what they came to say?
You know what I think? I think monsters aren't the end of the world. I think they're the test. The moment where everything we've built gets pushed, pulled, shaken to its core. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only way we figure out what actually matters.
Yeah, I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared. Hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe on my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me your way cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they fill in the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Drowning, I'm off the deep end. Apparitions of all my demons. All my thoughts are committing treason. All alone, who gon' hear me screaming? Manifestations of my fears. Regrets that stretched out for light years. Can almost touch the light, homie, it's right there. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All the lights are fading now. All my life is fading now. All my life is fading now. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All my life is fading now. All my life is fading now. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares.
I don't fear becoming like them. I fear I already am. The healer turned silent. The watcher turned monster. They say I lost my place in heaven. Truth is, I gave it up. Because if healing is a crime, then yes, write me down among the forgotten.